Welcome to Mediumship Matters, the podcast dedicated to spiritual growth, connection, and the reality of working with spirit. This season is proudly sponsored by Spirit Social, the brand new online community for the spiritually curious. It's a space where you can connect, share experiences, and access exclusive content without the noise of mainstream social media. With live events, expert insights, and a supportive community, Spirit Social is the place to deepen your journey. Take part in the free 6-month trial by visiting spiritsocial.co or downloading the app from the App Store now. Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah Macintyre. How are you doing? Today is one of those podcasts. It feels like it's been a while, actually. I've been answering so many questions, but today I'm just going to allow myself to hit record and see what falls out of my mouth. I wanted to talk to you all about, well, I've been focusing a lot recently on the journey. I've finished my second book, as you know, and my second book is all about my development journey and me learning mediumship and finding out the spirit world existed and all of that stuff and everything that happened in those early days. And of course, when you're sitting in that energy of where you've been and the journey, it's kind of fascinating to try to relate to somebody you no longer are, to try and sit in the energy of decisions you made that you wouldn't make now, in the belief systems that were given to you by other people that you held on to as absolute truths, only over years to have those truths eroded and overturned as your understanding with spirit changes and as your understanding of yourself changes. And I wanted to talk to you about things that I was wrong about, things that I stalwartly and completely believed to be factually correct, only to find out that they weren't. And what the impact of that has been on my journey going forward, and how I still see some of these things propagated. And it, to me, is fascinating. Fascinating. So let's start with the big one. Demons, entities, attachments, all of that stuff, because I have such a different view on these than I had a year ago, but also such a different view than I had 14 years ago when I started this journey. So just in case you need a recap and you're new to the podcast and this is where you've ended up, hi, welcome. Thanks for listening. My first teacher, who I owe everything to, I'm incredibly grateful to and for her love, her guidance, her teaching, believed in demons, attachments, and entities, and taught me to protect myself from demons, attachments, and entities. So when I was very early on in my journey, and my teacher was one of those teachers that teaches you to sit in the power. I personally do not teach sitting in the power. I don't believe in it, but it was something that I believed then that I needed to do to be able to connect to spirit. The more I sat in the power, the more my connection would grow. Now I believe that it's the more you sit with yourself. And there's something really not gaslighty, but avoidance. There's a real avoidance in sitting in the power that I see that happened in myself and I see happening in people all the time, where they are so busy on expanding their energy and becoming more powerful that they're forgetting or avoiding to sit with themselves. And I think in mediumship, the number one thing, if you want to improve your connection to spirit, the number one way to do that is improve the connection to yourself. It's inescapable. In the tiny, minute gap where you move your mind to the spirit world, where you expand out to see who's there, in that void, in that space, there is only you reflected back at you. And if you can't be in your own company, or you're trying to avoid things that you need to deal with that are in your energy field, past traumas, past upsets, repeating patterns, all of those shenanigans that we talk about all the time in healing, then that's going to limit you. It's going to hold you back. Think of your energy being really congested. You want it to be as clear as it possibly can be. Never 100% clear either, because you're a human being. You can't escape your humanness. But somewhere in there should be more clarity, more space, more calmness. And that, to me, is the power. Whereas I was taught the power was about expanding your energy, getting it bigger, becoming aware of it, kind of creating a field for spirit to come to from your own aura. And sometimes we do that in meditations and it's fun and it's lovely, but it's not the key. I don't do that when I'm doing evidential mediumship. I don't do that when I'm doing readings. It's not necessary. It can give you a better experience if you want to trip the light fantastic and go astral planing, then you should be kind of moving into that energy. But it's not going to stop you in your spirit communications, whether it's with your higher self, your guides, or somebody's loved one. So I was practicing the expanding of my light. My husband was in bed next to me, snoring like a warthog, and I couldn't get to sleep. It's that funny thing where you're trying to be loving because you're so glad that they're asleep, aren't you? But also you just want to put a pillow over their face. So I was there getting frustrated, and I thought I won't get frustrated. I still really believed in law of attraction, which is also on the list then. So I believed that I had to be grateful that he was having a good night's sleep, and I shouldn't be a bad person by getting annoyed with it. That's the mirror. Gaslight, gaslight. You're allowed to be annoyed with somebody snoring, by the way, guys. It's perfectly normal. So I decided to view this as an opportunity to practice expanding my energy. And I was growing it and I was shrinking it. And I was sitting in my power and expanding my power and reaching out. And all of a sudden, I became very aware of a figure at the end of my bed in the darkness. And I felt like that figure was ominous. I felt like they were stealing my power and they scared me. It made me jump when I could see something with my physical eyes. And it was just like an outline of a person made of shadow. And I absolutely freaked out. I got very afraid. I called my spirit guides in and they took me for a picnic in a sunlit garden on a gingham picnic blanket. I've always remembered it until I calmed down, and they stayed with me until I went to sleep. And when I went to Circle the following week and I asked my teacher what had happened, she told me that it was my fault, that I hadn't put protection in place, and that I was lit up like a Christmas tree, attracting demons to me who wanted to steal my light. And I believed her. And in a way, what she said was true. Bear with me. So as I learn with Jill and we're going through all these experiences and I'm doing my angelic Reiki and I'm having all these profound and amazing life-changing experiences, after I do my angelic Reiki course, she takes me on an entity release course by her teacher who taught her angelic Reiki. And we are taught in a weekend how to handle entities, demons, attachments, parasites on grids, all sorts of fancy and kind of spooky sounding names for things. I got a certificate. And then that became part of my reason for being with spirit. I thought that that was my calling. And Jill told me that was my calling. And that really was a wonderful thing for me because who doesn't want to be told by their teacher that they love and respect, that this is their purpose given to them by spirit? We all, if we're honest, we all want Spirit to give us our purpose. There's nothing that lights us up more than knowing that this is what we're supposed to be doing here. But I think what we're supposed to be doing here has complexities and isn't as rigid as a job title. But we'll cover that another day. I'm trying to stay on topic, guys. You know what I'm like. It's hard. So I spent many years, as you know, clearing energy, clearing houses, pulling like beetly bug things that look like scarab beetles with lots of legs out of people's energy fields. I was slapped by spirits. I was spat at by spirits. All sorts of things until, as you know, the question started in my mind, which just then unraveled it all. And I say just, it was over several years. Why does spirit need me? If I'm calling in an angel to clear a space, to clear someone's energy, to clear their home, to stop them being haunted, and the angel comes and it does that, why do they need me? And it was a really hard undoing for me because I had seen so many spooky and scary and challenging things. I'd had this one, I don't know, alien-y type thing that sort of hung off my arm from its teeth. Just so many really creepy and spooky and horrible things. And then Spirit told me, not in one download, over years, as an unfolding, I had to unwind. Like if you imagine me spinning like a roundabout, I'd spun in one direction for such a long time with this belief system, so that when Spirit came to bring the question and help me to open up, I then had to unspin all of that energy and all of that understanding. And it took longer to undo it than it did to do it. I just want to make that really clear. And I'm not telling any of you have to change your opinion about anything. This is just my experience, subject to change in the future. So I then had this whole unfolding with Spirit where Spirit showed me that actually I wasn't seeing these things for the most part with my physical eyes. Now, the shadow man I did see with my physical eyes, but other things I didn't see with my physical eyes. And they told me that really it was just negative energy, that my brain was going through its Rolodex of clairvoyant images, because clairvoyant images, generally speaking, are made by your mind, by what you've already seen, by your points of reference. So Spirit, if you imagine everything you've ever laid your eyes on in your life is images in your mind, like photos, Polaroids. And then when you get a bit of energy, your brain will go through all the Polaroids to find the most fitting Polaroid to give you. And mine, unfortunately, was from horror movies. And so when I was faced with negative energy, I saw things from horror movies. And that, of course, validated my whole belief system that there were things to be afraid of. And you guys, that takes you kind of up to where I've been on this podcast. But in the last year, there has also been the question from me of, but what about people that experience poltergeists? What about people that are being hurt? I had a lady once send me a photo. She had the most perfectly formed footprint on her leg. What are these things? What do they mean? And kind of I'm always open to having my mind changed. I want to make that clear. And I see a lot of stuff. And as I mentioned recently on this podcast, I've suddenly ended up back on a scary shit algorithm where there's people talking about demons and what demons have done to them. And I am not trying to discredit anybody's experience. I know what I experienced when I believed in demons. So I've been having these kind of conversations with my spirit team about, what is this kind of grey area in the middle? Because I can tell you unequivocally that as soon as I was shown by Spirit that this didn't exist, it didn't exist for me. I don't protect my energy from the spirit world at all, ever. I live opposite a graveyard. I don't get walk-in ghosts. I protect my energy from other humans and from psychic attack, but never from the spirit world, because the spirit world are always good. So where does that leave us when we're talking about demons and entities and attachments? And here's where I'm at the moment. You know, in that episode I did ages ago called Cake, when I was talking about all the layers and that everybody's on their different layers and never the twain shall cross. So if you think about it very simply, everybody that's here is experiencing their own frequency. We do know that from law of attraction, from all of the teachings that come in from the spirit world. We also know it from the work we've done on ourselves, do we not? I know that as soon as I did the healing work and I worked on my reflection and I worked on my energy and I worked on where I was focusing my mind and I meditated and I healed and I sat with my shit, I know my life got better. If you've done that work, you will know your life got better too. And it doesn't get better from gaslighting yourself. That really irritates me. But the attitude of gratitude does help. Finding things to be grateful for does invite more things to be grateful for in. We know that this works. It works across the board. So we know that. Well, the same is true of our belief system, is what Spirit is showing me. And if you believe that there are things out there in the spirit world to be afraid of, that is what you will experience. And to go back to episode 1, where I mentioned the telepathy tapes, if you've listened to that, if you get far enough through it, you will know, I think it's episode 10, possibly 11, where they are asking the non-speakers to share their beliefs about the spirit world and what they're seeing and their gifts. And one of the non-speakers, and I'm paraphrasing here, this is not a direct quote, but says that our experience of spirit is limited to our belief system of them. So if we believe that spirit is going to be scary, we'll feel it scary. And I've made that very simplistic. Listen to the podcast if you want to, but you get the kind of gist. And I feel like that's answered the question for me. The question of, I know that both of these things were true. I know that I experienced negative energy and I know it seemed to have an intelligence and it could communicate and I could understand it. But I also know that since Spirit have said to me, doesn't exist, it doesn't exist for me. I know that when I cleared houses, it always worked. I know that the people whose houses I went into, when I told them it was clear, when they knew it was clear, it worked. It was clear. And if they ever rang me up afterwards and said, I think something's back, I would tune in from where I was and I would say, no, it isn't, it's perfectly clear. And then they wouldn't experience it again. Because if they started doubting and worrying, then they would experience it again, even though the spirit, as I then believed it to be, the demon, had gone. I know when I've done spirit boards that if you've got a load of people who trust and love the spirit world, it's easy and you get messages of love and support and happiness and affirmation and joy. I also know you can have one person in that room who's uncomfortable with spirit boards and it won't work properly. So much so that I've stopped doing them at my retreats because I could see the damage it was doing to the believers when we were getting spookiness through. And I don't believe spirit are ever spooky, but I believe we were calling in an energy. And energy, I think language is such a limit. It's such a you've got this energy that's an expanse that goes on for eternity. And then we've got our tiny little bits of language, and our understandings and comprehensions of things are so limited. When you're trying to get something to spell something out on a spirit board, do I believe that energy can spell out on a spirit board? Yes, I do. And that energy might come from your fear of the spirit board and not from the spirit world at all. So this is the kind of weird space that we find ourselves in now, where if you believe that there's things to be afraid of, then you will experience things to be afraid of. If you believe that there is nothing but love in the spirit world, then that energy goes. You don't experience it. And so if we're going back to layers, I think maybe I'm on a layer and an experience, and then other people are on other ones. And so people are experiencing demons, attachments, entities, but not because they're from spirit, but just because that is the energy that they're experiencing in that dimensional space. If you believe it, you experience it. You must all know this when you've gone to the supermarket and you've been like, I hate everybody. It's really busy. It's going to be a horrible day. You have horrible interactions with people. When you go and you're happy and you're having fun, it's all fun. It's all good. The energy's great. Same thing, but just demonically, just labeled differently. That's my current take, and I would love your take on it. It's a really interesting thing. I know that I've mentioned Uncanny Podcast on this podcast before, and I did once really love it. I think I've gone off it slightly now. I think it's I would like them to start asking some deeper questions on it, and I find it frustrating that it is just one person that believes in poltergeist and one person that doesn't believe in spirit at all, and there's nothing in the middle. I really wish there was something in the middle that they would do that bridge with. But I think that when you listen to a lot of the stories on Uncanny, you can recognize sometimes people in spirit being absolutely desperate to get messages through to their loved ones who are being perceived as something spooky, but are in fact just loved ones trying to get a message through in desperation. And I know it can't be helped, but I find it really, really fascinating that mediums that have worked with spirit for a while are not asking the question, if spirit are all powerful, if you believe in life after death, if you believe in the spirit world and the power of the spirit world, if you believe in angels, why do you believe that they're letting these things come and get us? Why are they doing that? And that is the same with trapped spirits. I really believed in trapped spirits, and I had a whole ego built around moving people on from it was mainly people who had taken their own life, which is a real judgment in itself, isn't it? People who had taken their own life, whether that was through drugs, alcohol, suicide, anything else like that. And then we would move them on because they were trapped and stuck here. And it was our duty as good spiritual people to help them move into the light. Because obviously, I mean, God, aren't spiritual people annoying? Like when I look back at myself, I think, God, what a dickhead. Because obviously, me at the ripe old age of 32 and all my life experience knew better than anybody that you needed to move into the light, sweetie. What are you doing in the dark? Yes, you've made bad choices, but move into the light. Blech. Anyway, we did that, and I will tell you, the energies that we saw clear in rescue circles were incredible. They were breathtaking. They were beautiful. The energy was so loving and so compassionate. And this is the thing that validated that those people needed moving on. But of course they didn't. We were clearing energy left behind, not spirits. We were clearing the hurts, the pain, the regret, the sadness that those souls had left behind when they departed their experience here on earth, not the souls themselves. Because why would spirit leave someone behind? Why, with all the power of the heavenly realms, would spirit go, oh, look at that sad young lad who took his own life after a lifetime of abuse and sadness on earth? He's got to move into the light, though. Shame. Why would they do that? They wouldn't. It's not the spirit world we know. And so this is the thing. You can experience shifts in energy. You can go into a room and ask the energy to leave and sprinkle some sage and chuck some crystals in and play some happy music, and the energy will shift. But it doesn't mean that spirit have let you have some terrible experience. And I really believe that energy is, spirit are made of energy, but a different frequency. They're from a different dimension. But there is energy here too. And it's not spirit energy, it's just energy. Like psychic energy, when you think of somebody and they call you, that's not directed by spirit world. That's just an energetic, a psychic energy between you and somebody you love. If you've got people doing hauntings and there's a ghost hunts, that's what they're called, isn't it? And there's a house that everybody knows there's a miserable old lady in who throws things at you, that's probably what you'll get. But not because there's a spirit there, but because in years of people going in there going, watch out for Maud, she's going to chuck something at your head, she's horrible. That is what people have experienced. That's called that energy in. I think we're so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And this is the problem. So this is the first of the things that I was wrong about. Demons, entities, trapped spirits. There is no person left behind. And I really do believe that the natural state for all of us is the spirit state. So there is no sort of heavenly escalator, stairs to walk up. You just go back to your natural state. Your natural state is being in spirit. There we are. Off we go. Now, I mentioned law of attraction briefly there, but something I was really wrong about was law of attraction. And I think that it's important to differentiate. I absolutely believe that you create your own reality. I do believe that. But I do believe that you create that in collaboration with your soul and the plan that you had to be here. And also that your reality will bump up and integrate with other people's realities. If you've got a really negative family, and you're trying to be really positive, it doesn't matter how much you go, I'm so grateful for the butterfly, I'm so happy for the light, I'm so happy that I breathe. You're still going to be weighed down by the interactions of the people that are around you. There's no amount of spiritual self-gaslighting that is going to shift you suddenly into this amazing place where you get all that you want. And I think law of attraction teaching can be beneficial, but it's also become, like the world's biggest pyramid scheme, but also dangerous. I would love a law of attraction diehard to go visit, a kid whose parents are both drug addicts, who's grown up in the care system where they've been abused, and look them deep in the eyes and tell them that they just need to think more positively. I think there's a really dangerous element when we get into that space. However, I do believe, as I said earlier, that you can only get things in that you are an energetic match to. So, for example, it would be quite nice if I was a billionaire. I spend a lot of time thinking about all of the things all the causes I would support, all the people's lives I would change if I was mega rich. Mega rich. I think, but at the moment when I'm recording this, There's been the horrendous ruling in the UK that's caused so much harm to the trans community and so much upset. And you look at J.K. Rowling, who's invested £70,000 into that court case, but has never paid any money out to help women's rights in any way, shape, or form. And it does make you think, what would I spend the money on if I had it, and all of this kind of stuff. But that money's not just coming in with me. If I wanted even a small smidge of huge chunks of cash to be able to do things with, I need to make sure that I'm in a space where I'm aligned to be able to receive it. You can't just call it in from where you are. You have to get your energy to match, and that takes time and it takes effort. It does take effort. You have to work on yourself. You have to sit with your shit. You can't just pretend it's not there and squash it down and go, only good vibes only. You have to kind of integrate it and allow that flow. If you think of your energy like water running through channels, and then there is all these beautiful tiny little channels all filled with water, and this is your energy. If something terrible happens to you, you get a block in one of those channels. Now the water will flow around it as best it can, but the block is there until you deal with it. And that's how energy works from my point of view at this time. So you can work on your mindset, please do. You can use affirmations. I absolutely believe in affirmations. I think they're amazing. But you also have to look at what comes up for you when you do the affirmation. You can't just say, I am great and riches are coming my way, because you have to listen to the little voice inside of you, deep within you, that goes, no, I don't deserve it. No, I won't get that, because things like that don't happen for someone like me. And that's the thing you have to deal with. You have to look at where the affirmation rubs and grates and hits. And I think for some of us, we come here with particular missions. We come here with particular experiences we agree to have. And if your experience is not, I'm going to live the life of a billionaire and spend my time on a yacht being massaged and handed margaritas, that's my dream, then you're not going to get it, are you? Also, I say that's my dream. I'd like it for a couple of days, but it sounds really boring after a while. Once I've topped up the tan and I've drunk enough spicy margs, what's left? I don't know. But we have these kind of moving goalposts of things that we want, and we have to do the inner work to align our energy to them. I absolutely believe that. The final thing on my list of things I was wrong about was the one that spirit control who comes through in a reading. Now, I do believe that when you're doing platform, spirit do control in some way who comes in, and it might not necessarily be who the sitter wants to hear from, and it will be, I think, chosen by who brings the vibes for you as the medium, who you as the medium can get the most evidence correct for. I just think the spirit have a really complicated job when it comes to platform to get it just right. But in a one-on-one where there's more time and there's more space to unfold and sit in the energy and expand it, I do believe that us as mediums can sometimes land on the wrong person. And I don't think that that is talked about. And I know I've mentioned it on the podcast before, so don't worry, I'm not going to go all the way down it. But it's just a real reminder that I think it can be incredibly damaging if you have got a mother sat in front of you who wants to hear from her daughter because the worst thing that's ever happened to a parent has happened to her. And you say, oh, well, Spirit have decided your grandma's coming in today. I think that gives a really damaging representation of the spirit world, which we should be very, very mindful of. Now, there are times where you can't get hold of a spirit for somebody. And I know I mentioned this on the previous episode with just me, where for whatever reason, I don't know whether it's us and an energy thing or spirit have decided that the sitter's not ready to hear from that person. But every now and again, there will be a spirit that I can't get hold of, but it's few and far between. It really is. And most of the time when it happens, I know it's because I've blocked myself off because I'm not feeling comfortable, not because the spirit's not there, but because I can't do it. And I kind of miss the days when I could blame it on spirit and still sleep at night. Because when I could blame it on spirit, it didn't seem like I was fallible. I would go, well, it's spirit's plan. Spirit always brings through the best person for you. And, the best person for them is stood in the room going, hey, I'm here, I'm here. And I just wasn't tuning into them. So I was really wrong about that. Absolutely. And I guess with all of these things that I've been telling you about, I caused damage with those belief systems, whether I like it or not. I did. In telling people, where do you sit on it? If you've gone and cleared somebody's house and they believe that they're being haunted by demons and you get rid of the demons, you're validating that demons exist, but you're also clearing the energy. So as long as they believe that all is well, they will be fine because it's gone, because they believe it's gone. But then once if they move house, they have now got it validated that demons exist. That's a horrendous thought form that I've given to people, multiple people, lots and lots, tens of hundreds of people, because I really believed that, and I really believed that for a long time. I've done countless rescue circles where we helped people pass in that kind of sanctimonious, patronizing, yeah, you didn't make good choices, but it's okay because we work for the spirit world and we'll help you move on. But that story is with people that I taught that to. I don't know, and I honestly can't remember, but I have no doubt that there will have been people that I read for where I couldn't get hold of who I didn't land, let's phrase it this way. I didn't land on who they wanted to hear from, and I told them that spirit have an intelligence because that's what I was taught, that's what I was told. And that really is the question I think that I want to get to in this long and ponderous podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've stayed with me. You can wake up now if you've fallen asleep. But there's got to be an honesty from all of us in the growth. There's got to be discussion about the things that we were wrong about. And there's got to be a movement of change and shift through it. And you don't have to agree with me, God no, but let's not be afraid to talk about things that we were wrong about. Let's not be afraid to say, I used to believe this and now I believe that. Let's not be afraid to keep our podcasts up that have outdated and outmoded views on, because we can show the change and the growth. And I think this is the problem. Somewhere along the line, our natural spiritual connection and the fact that we rely on other people to give it to us has also been a limit, because you are approaching spirit through somebody else's filter. And that is absolutely what happened to me. And that is absolutely what I then propagated with some of my students at the beginning, was this is the way it is. There was no shift, no movement, no expansion. It was just, this is the way it is. And this is where we end up with stuff like the Bible and those questions and those stories. I'm just looking down because, oh no, this. So in 5 episodes time, you will hear an interview with Michael Mayo. And Michael Mayo mentions Jesus in this interview and says he would love to ask Jesus how wrong we got it all. And I think this is the thing. Just like the Bible, we have to be careful in our spirituality that we are not becoming rule-bound and rigid. And if we are getting things wrong, we are allowed to say, this is what I did, this is the damage I caused, and I'm sorry for that, but I didn't know any better at the time. I have only ever been able to teach and share and work as a medium from where I have been at my understanding, and that is okay. We're not supposed to know it all on day one, but that is why it's really, really important to do the integration, to do the work, not to rush through your development journey and set up your business really quickly and start working with clients. Oh my God, I tell you what else I've seen on. I've got demons and all that hoo-ha, and I'm really resisting the urge to start ranting about candles again, but you've all heard it. Don't worry. But also people who have got fantastic mediumship ability, working as mediums who have done no integration, who are giving messages in such blunt, horrendous, and damaging ways, who are doing amazing, specific evidence that I would give a finger to be able to do, but are also then connecting with famous missing person cases and announcing on their social media platforms that the child is dead before the parents know, and without the parents' permission to step into that space and look at it. So we all need to be questioning all of it. It's so important. Everything you think you know really should be leading you to, I know nothing. The more I have learnt from spirit, the less comfort there is, the less safety there is, the less of anything solid to anchor into there is, except for spirit are love, spirit are intelligent, and spirit have way more power than we do. So far, those three have been immovable for me and only ever validated and verified and expanded upon, unshifting. Everything else, moving. So many moving parts. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you want to clap back. That's great. I love a debate. It is such a fascinating thing to sit with and think about and understand. And I'm not telling you to believe what I believe. I'm just asking you to see what your awareness brings in when you are spirit. And obviously, my dog is barking, so that is the sign that it's time to go. Thank you all so much for listening. Please don't forget to rate this episode, comment if you're on Spotify. It really helps. Share the podcast. It helps me so much, and I will catch up with you all again soon.